Welcome back to The Takeout. President Trump's firing of Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem might not be enough for some Democrats. Connecticut Democratic Senator Richard Blumenthal is pushing for a perjury investigation, saying Noem may have lied under oath during a Senate hearing on Tuesday. Let's bring in our political panel to discuss. Republican strategist Erin Maguire and Democratic strategist John McCarthy. It's so great to have you both.
Hey, happy Friday.
So, Erin, I want to start there with Kristi Noem because administration sources tell us at the White House that there was just too much drama surrounding Noem, and she had to go because it was overshadowing the president's agenda. But you just heard what Senator Blumenthal said. Do you think that Republicans have a fresh start here, or that this will continue to follow them?
Well, I think there will be some repercussions from the Noem era at the Department of Homeland Security, and I think that there are a number of ways that could be looked at. It could be looked at the $220 million ad campaign that is now under immense scrutiny. It could be her leadership and the kind of internal politics we had been hearing about as well, plus the optics of the enforcement measures from them as well. I think all of that together, there's going to be a lot that comes from it. But Senator Mark Wayne Mullen, who has been put up for the position, is well-liked across the Hill. And while Democrats will continue to want to see reforms, there is a better shot with Mark Wayne being able, as the senator, to step forward and say, you know me as a member, you know me as a colleague and a friend. Here are the reforms I can bring without having to sign anything hard and fast. So I don't think it's a complete restart, but I do think they're on a better footing because already senators do really respect Senator Mullen.
And John, Leader Hakeem Jeffries name-checked Pam Bondi yesterday as another cabinet member who should be on the way out. But we know that President Trump has a lot of faith in her, and they work very closely together. So do you think that that's a smart use of messaging? And will it resonate?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that President Trump tends to stay loyal for very long. I mean, I think at any given day, the president might like you, and that could change pretty quickly. I think that was certainly the story for Secretary Noem. But one of the important things here, I think, is you're really just kind of changing window dressing at a certain point. The policies that are being played out now in the streets are what's incredibly unpopular. So changing the secretary, I don't think really is going to do that much. Yesterday, we saw a poll out of Fox News that even said that 50% of voters think that funding to ICE should be scaled down. 76% of Democratic voters, something like 60% of even Republican voters at this point, are saying that what they're seeing in the streets at places of worship, people going into people's homes without warrants, is really troubling to people. So I don't know that changing the secretary, no matter how much the incoming secretary is respected, is really going to change the politics of this too much.
And speaking of the president's loyalties and his whims, he hasn't endorsed yet in that Senate race in Texas. And I wonder why you think that is, because it seems that every day that the Republicans have a clear candidate to get behind is another day to build a case against the Democrats.
That's very true, but President Trump has a number of pressure points based in this race. One, you're looking at Senator Cornyn, who has the institution around him. He has his fellow senators. He has the Senate Leadership Fund and the National Republican Senatorial Committee pouring millions and millions of dollars into this race on his behalf. And then you have Ken Paxton, who stood with the president and was one of the only few electeds who stood with him after January 6th, and was one of the few electeds with him when he announced his reelection campaign for the 24 cycle. So the president, for all of his whims and loyalties sometimes, has remained very loyal to Ken Paxton, and he, in return, has remained loyal to the president. This is one that I don't see changing. I see those two pressure points really being the toughest parts for the president right now, and the pressure is clearly ramping up on the president.
Yes, well, our reporting is that he is likely to endorse Cornyn. And if that is the case, how do you feel about James Tallarico going up against him? I
mean, I think that James Tallarico is a great candidate no matter who he runs against. I think for the new kind of Democratic Party, primaries are a good thing. We're strengthened by this. I think that Tallarico comes out of that primary contest a much stronger candidate. I think Congressman Crockett is going to be supportive of his campaign. I think the Democratic Party in Texas is stronger because of this. So I'm not as concerned about who's on the other side, because I actually think that the brand that Tallarico has put forward is a strong one for the Democratic Party.
I just want to fast forward a little bit to 2028, because it's going to be here before we know it. Before we know it, we keep saying that, but it's true. So former Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene, she posted her support for Tucker Carlson in a presidential run. after Trump said Carlson has lost his way. And Green says Carlson beat Trump if he tried to violate the Constitution and run for a third term. What does that tell you about how Green is trying to position herself and about this wing that is clearly forming?
Well, it's clear Marjorie Taylor Greene is going nowhere in the public sphere. Even though she's not an elected member anymore, she's clearly going to stay engaged at the front of an America First political operation. But she is out there saying that, you know, you're not MAGA anymore and defining what's MAGA. The only person who defines what the Make America Great Again movement is President Trump. That is his movement. And what he says it is at the moment, that's what it is. And if that's a little bit of whiplash for folks, they've kind of gotten used to it over the last decade. So she is going to be going into headwinds, even if she's trying to turn against the president now, right? We all know she's already kind of stepped away from him, but to try and take his base from him, that is a step I think that the president will eventually have to step in and squash.
And John, what do you think? I know a lot can happen between now and then, but does this other wing that's not MAGA have a role in?
I mean, to me, one of the best forces that you can predict on is that politicians are ambitious people, right? And I think it's nice to sit and say that the president's space is what the president's space decides it's going to be. But the reality is Donald Trump is a lame duck president. And ambitious politicians who want to be the future of any political party are going to try and kind of find their own lane on any of this. And I think that a lot of people who, you know, might still have a couple of decades of service left ahead of them are looking at this and saying it's not going to age well.
John McCarthy, Erin Maguire, thank you so much for your time.